Hello and welcome to this week's episode of Strange Pathways. I'm your host, Scott Mort, and I am very excited today. I'm recording this a bit earlier in the day than I usually do. At 1 o'clock, me and my lovely wife, Ariana, we're going to head over to the local Masonic temple where living legend Stan Gordon is going to be doing a speech on Bigfoot in Pennsylvania. I cannot wait. This is as bad as last weekend was. This weekend, gonna be great. Huge happy birthday wish going out to my wife. My wife celebrated a birthday on Friday. Finished her first week of work at her new job. Absolutely just proud as the Dickens of her, and of course, by proud as the Dickens, I've really showed my age, haven't I? Our first tale is going to take us back to 1952, Mormon Mesa, which is a 2,000-foot high mount near Nevada's Moapa Valley. There's a gentleman climbing that. His name is the amazingly named Truman Betharium. Truman is climbing this giant mesa looking for fossilized shells. His wife, Mary, she's stuck at home in Santa Barbara, so he's out there. He's trying to do something nice for her. So he's looking for shells. He gets up to Mormon Mount, and he enters in this very strange state of mind. And as Truman is standing there, just sort of dazed, these aliens manifest in front of him. They arrive in this huge flying saucer, and it quietly descends to the floor of the desert. They come out. They're only about 4.5, 5 feet tall, but they are a dead ringer for humans. They have no alien features outside of an unusually small height, and quite honestly, 5-foot tall humans, I've seen them. I'm related to some. It's not out of the realm of possibility. These aliens, they come up to Truman and they tell them that they're from a planet called Clarion. Their leader comes forward, a Captain Ara Rains. And Betharium looks at her and just immediately has gone nuts for her. He describes her as being tops in shapeliness and beauty. In Truman's mind, the thought of Mary, his lovely wife, his sole reason for coming out to the mesa, after seeing Ara Rains, Mary was a distant thought in his mind. As the months went on, Betharium would leave his wife behind in Santa Barbara and go out and visit Captain Rains in the desert. A lot of them late at night. They would have long conversations about atomic warfare, the Cold War. They would talk about the differences between Earth and Clarion and how they were similar. A few times, Captain Rains even promised to take Betharium to Clarion to see what it was like. And even though Betharium didn't exactly say so, there are a few ways that he said certain things that made it seem like him and Captain Rains were also having a sexual affair as well. Rains, however, didn't always play the part of a friendly visitor from another world. August 1952, around 3 a.m., Betharium's out with a work friend named Whitey. They had just finished their day's work, and they had decided to take Whitey's truck to an all-night diner in Glendale, Nevada. Now, Whitey was someone that Truman had kind of said, "Hey, I've had these experiences, and I've met this alien from another world." Whitey was fascinated, but rightfully so, he was skeptical. Whitey spent a lot of the time listening to the stories, waiting for the punchline, a punchline that never came. And that day, whenever they entered the diner, Whitey became a believer. As they drank coffee and ate pie, Whitey kind of got Betharium's attention and told him, take a look at the counter. Truman Betharium looks up, and he sees Aura Raines and another male individual of Aura Raines' species, the Clarionites, I guess you'd call them, standing there. Whitey's kind of shocked. And Whitey says, "It's her, isn't it?" Betharium just nods his head, yes. Raines and her crewmate, they sit down at a window table. Raines is dressed completely in black, a black beret, wraparound black sunglasses, a black velvet blouse, black boots, and a red skirt. She's an MIB of sorts. A little side note here. I've done a lot of research on female men in black and the men in black in general for this episode. A theme sort of developed as I was doing research. We need to find a new name for the phenomenon men in black, because everything that I found had to do with the movie. It was infuriating. I, for one, am growing fond of the phrase anomalous military personnel. But yeah, MIB just isn't doing it, unfortunately. Back to the story, though. Whitey looks at Betharium and says, "What are you going to do?" Betharium stands up, walks over, talks to them. Whitey wanted none of this. He leaves the diner, just goes to sit in the truck. But Betharium goes over to Raines and says, and I quote, "I beg your pardon, lady, but haven't we met before?" Raines looks up at Betharium and just goes, "No." In what has been described as a chilling, demonic tone, almost like a deadly hiss. Betharium, though, even though he's shaken, he says, "You very closely resemble a lady I met some time ago out on Mormon Mesa." Another no. He keeps going on with this, and the answer is the same over and over again. Now, the man with Raines, not a word. He didn't give a hint that he heard Betharium. He didn't even give a hint that he was aware Betharium was even there. Betharium said it was almost as if he was a blind and deaf mute person. A waitress comes over, who also happens to be somebody that Betharium has told his tales to. She leans over and kind of whispers in Betharium's ear, "They're the saucer people you told us about." It was that obvious to everyone Betharium told in the diner. Betharium tells the waitress, "Yeah, I thought so too, but maybe not. The lady has on dark glasses. The man had a scar on his face." And then the waitress says, "Yeah, I noticed the scar too, but it's not a scar. It's only penciled on." Once the waitress tells Betharium that this scar is just applied with makeup, the little man in black motions for the check. It's only a few moments. The check's paid, and they head to the door. The waitress then comes over to Betharium after they leave and tells Betharium, "The lady told me to tell you that she knows you and that she's sorry. And yes is the answer to some of your questions." Betharium looks over, sees them take a step from the door. He turns, pays his check, turns back, they're gone. Betharium runs outside. Whitey's just standing there puffing on a cigarette. Betharium goes, "Where are they? They just left." And he goes, "Truman, they never came out. Not a soul passed through that door until you came out." Fast forward a couple of weeks. Betharium's getting a haircut in Las Vegas. And he sees Ara Raines again walking on the sidewalk outside the barber's. She's wearing the same outfit that she had in the diner. He doesn't even wait for the haircut to be finished. He throws the money down, races out the door, and starts screaming, "Lady! Lady!" Raines is about 60 feet ahead of him. Now she turns around, looks directly at him. And remember, this is Vegas. This is a crowded street. Raines makes eye contact with him and shakes her head with a look of pure evil. Betharium, he gets the message. He leaves it alone. But pretty soon, he's out in the desert again, having his wonderful tete-a-tetes with Captain Ara Raines. This goes on until November 2nd, 1952. Ara Raines and the people of Clarion say they're not coming back. Betharium's crushed. He's absolutely heartbroken. Before the people of Clarion left, they gave Truman 10 psychic impressions. Some of them very true, some of them very false. The 10 impressions were that there will never be an atomic or hydrogen war. Well, I hope that one's true. Number 2, the children born in the 60s will never carry guns to kill with. Very, very false. Number 3, in the 70s, all nations will be anxious and eager to settle all differences at roundtable discussions without sword rattling. Very false. 4, in 25 years, battleships and bombers will be as obsolete as Model T Fords are today. Very false. Number 5, women will enter more into government duties, and we will have a female president before the end of the century. No. I mean, 50-50. I'll give him 50-50 on that one. We do have a female vice president now. I mean, I'm not saying that it's a fair playing table, but there's been improvements. Number 6, political partisanship will disappear, and we will select our leaders and representatives through their knowledge and their ability rather than their personal prestige and wealth. Very, very wrong. 7, we will cancel money laws that discriminate against certain classes now, and the class or wealth system will disappear to a system of equality for all. Very, very, very wrong. Number 8, there will be a return to the soil, small farms, and country estates for all. Wrong. 9, building for destruction will cease, and construction for production will be a national determination for all nations. I'm going to give that a 20% true, but 80% wrong. And 10, space travel and knowledge will come only to a friendly universe where class distinction, racial hatred, misunderstanding, and greed will not exist. There will only be brothers of a peaceful universe. And sadly, very, very wrong. Our next tale takes us to the latter half of 2008, Tampa, Florida, somewhere around 3 a.m. Now, this story was recounted to Nick Redfern, whose research I relied heavily upon for the story of Truman Betharium. Nick Redfern, just an absolute powerhouse of an investigator. This gentleman, we'll call him Steve. Steve was working as a bar manager at a sports bar in Tampa. It's around 3 a.m. The bar's starting to close. And they're cashing out the servers, sending them home, closing down the kitchen. He closes out the register, puts a couple of coins in the jukebox, and just sort of sits down. He's taking a knee. Steve is running out the clock. And 10 minutes to 3, 10 minutes before the bar is to close and the doors lock, a couple walks in. Steve goes, "Last call, cash only." And he locks the door behind them. Now, he admits this is rude, but he's been on shift for 12 hours, and it's 10 minutes to the end of the day. He just wants to go home. Steve begins to feel uneasy. Neither of these individuals, they don't sit down on the stools. Both of them order a non-alcoholic beer and then just stand there holding their drinks. Then he notices they have an almost all black attire. The man appears to be about 40. He wears a black double-breasted suit, 1950 style, a rumpled black shirt, and a crooked black tie. He's about 5'9", thin, incredibly pale skin. You can even see the blue veins underneath the skin. He has a very high forehead, big cheekbones, deep set, large blue eyes. The deepest blue he's ever seen in a creature's eyes. His hair was unhealthy looking, silvery gray, pulled back in a ponytail. But it also had like random dark brown patches Steve said it was like he gave an attempt to diet and gave up halfway through. The woman, 5'6", thin to the point of emaciation, looked to be about mid-20s. She's wearing a black evening gown, elbow-length satin gloves, and a bright green knit shawl around her shoulders. The woman has a short bob haircut with bangs. But Steve gets the feeling it's really a bad wig that hasn't really been cared for. She's got the same high forehead, weird cheekbones, blue eyes, but her eyes are slightly slanted, a little bit more narrow. Neither one had eyebrows. Steve starts cleaning up behind the bar, and the woman starts to go like clearing her throat, like, oh, look at me, like a Karen. Like a Karen. She begins clearing her throat. That's whenever he notices the stench. He notices the body odor coming from the woman. It smells like she hasn't bathed in a month. Now, a lot of UFO experiencers, whenever they have the experiences with the Greys, they say the Greys smell like a sewer. One of the theories is that we get rid of our waste and, well, we go to the toilet. Every last one of us has done it. But these things get rid of their waste, these Greys, by evaporating it through their skin. So they smell horrible. But this woman also smells like chemicals. Steve, who has had apparently a very interesting life, used to be an apprentice to an embalmer. And he says this woman smells like a chemical that they use to embalm humans, formalin. I've had the theory for a long time that what we're seeing whenever we have a man in black experience, or I guess an anomalous military personnel experience, what we are seeing is actually puppeted corpses. What better decoy would there be if you can't fit in to a society? Why not puppet around one of their taxidermy dead? There are several cases of aliens robbing graves. There are several cases of men in black moving in herky-jerky motions and having a corpse-like appearance. And now this woman is smelling like an embalming fluid? Steve walks over. The man kind of waves him over, beckons him. And the man places a black leather satchel on the bar. He takes out several photographs and goes, "Do you know any of the subjects in these pictures?" Part of Steve is going, oh, this is a police investigation. But Steve looks at the pictures and he becomes terrified. Now, Steve is part of the goth culture in Tampa. And he said that subculture attracts Wiccans, Satanists, occultists. But he's looking at the photos, and some of these photos are his friends. Not only that, it's not like, oh, snap a photo in a mugshot. These are candid photos snapped from hiding. Some of them even have timestamps on. It's obviously closed-circuit television footage. The woman keeps staring and grinning at Steve as he looks over the photos. Steve knows, somewhere deep down in his soul, knows the man's talking, but she's the one in charge. He doesn't understand why he knows it, but he knows it. Steve lies. I don't know who these people are. We're closing. You need to leave. Remember, they're not sitting down. Both of these MIBs, they grin at him. They know he's lying. The man unlocks the door, and they both quietly walk out. Didn't even take a sip from their beers. It gets weirder, though. He had pumped some coins in that jukebox. Once this MIB couple had left, that jukebox was dead. He even remembered the bands that were playing before they walked in. It was Iron Maiden and then Susie and the Banshees. Now that model of jukebox, it can't be shut off by remote. The only reason it would die is unplugging it, power outage. You have to interrupt the flow of electricity. That bar closed 2 months later. He never saw that couple again. Never. A little while after this experience, though, he contacts his former assistant manager, one server that he still keeps in contact with, and he goes, Did you ever have odd occurrences with black cars, odd phone calls? Nothing with black cars, but both the assistant manager and the waitress said that someone kept calling the bar on his nights off, asking for Steve by his full name. Now, this was only 2 weeks before the encounter. No one outside of Steve's family, not his close friends, no one really. No one outside of his family and his lawyer know his middle name. It's not even on his social security card. The voice on the other end of the phone knew his full name. The server and the assistant manager said that he's not working tonight. The female voice on the other end would giggle and hang up. Three days after his encounter, he develops a severe bacterial infection on his legs and his lower abdomen. A strep infection. The doctor couldn't even figure out how he contracted it. Are these aliens? Are they reanimated corpses being piloted by aliens? Is this some sort of fey trick? Would you even realize it walking by one of them? Would you just go, that's an odd looking person, and go about your day? Our last tale takes us to the night of March 13th, 1997, Phoenix, Arizona. You all know what this is. This is the Phoenix Lights. A lot of people saw the Phoenix Light. Quite a few amount of people filmed the Phoenix Lights. Actor Kurt Russell was flying his plane and saw the Phoenix Light. One of the first people to report the Phoenix Light was Kurt Russell. But the person that we're talking about is a gentleman named Richard Curtis. Now, whenever it comes to a case like the Phoenix Lights, there are a lot of players. There's Dr. Lynn Katay. There's Fife Symington, whose behavior, in my opinion, was deplorable. Making fun of those who saw the Phoenix Lights when he himself was a witness. Absolutely deplorable. And the way Councilwoman Frances Barwood was treated, also deplorable. Her co-workers thought her behavior was stupid and foolish and a waste of money. Now, Barwood receives a call from Richard Curtis. He tells Frances Barwood, I have extremely detailed footage of the Phoenix Lights. I have captured them using high quality equipment. You can see the shape. You can see how big it is in comparison to the surrounding buildings and everything. The lights are gaseous, and he is excited that he's gotten it all on video. Curtis, a former soldier, he admits to Barwood that he has no idea who else to call. And he trusts Barwood. Barwood was intrigued. All the other footage of the Phoenix Lights, although amazing, it's just like specks of lights. It's not proof positive footage that these aren't flares like the military says they were. And whenever you see footage of the military dropping flares to try to mimic the Phoenix Lights, it's not even close. It's not even close. Barwood is intrigued because this is more than just specks of lights on a background. Curtis says, I will give you copies of the footage. Days pass. Barwood doesn't receive any film at all. She's thinking she made this up. He didn't have any video. It's just another person playing tricks on her. 1 week passes. Curtis telephones Barwood at her home and says, what did you think of the film? Barwood goes, I don't have the film. Curtis goes, 2 men from your workplace stopped up at my home. They were wearing 3-piece black suits, black shoes, black hats, black suitcases. You see where this is going. Curtis had asked the men, are you from Barwood's office? And they said, yes. And then they go, do you have the Phoenix Lights footage? The men said, give us the film and we'll make copies for you. Because you haven't had time. Curtis hands them the originals, the original videos. And the 2 men leave his house in a black sedan. Frances Barwood tells Curtis, no men from her office have come by. Nothing made sense to Barwood. In fact, her minuscule staff was all female. Curtis is angry. He's thinking the authorities had misled him. He was interviewed on Phoenix TV. He discussed everything that happened, including the Men in Black visit and that they took the video. Barwood feels horrible about this. She's trying to call Curtis, and he's not answering. Barwood gets to his apartment. He's not there. The neighbors tell Barwood that Curtis had been taking a faulty medication and was transported by ambulance to the hospital. There are no records of Curtis ever being admitted to any of the Phoenix area hospitals when Barwood was looking for him there. Barwood's a little freaked out by this. She has her phone lines checked by a professional. The professional comes in, visits the house, conducts the test, goes outdoors. He won't come back in the house after he gets outside. He comes to the back door and says to Barwood, quote, "No, I'm not coming in. Yes, your phone is tapped. It's a government tap." Now remember, the military is insisting the Phoenix lights are nothing more than flares. Richard Curtis vanished without a trace. Thank you for joining us again this week on Strange Pathways. Our Twitter, Pathways Strange. Come on over to our TikTok and our Instagram, both of them at Strange Pathways Podcast. If you'd like to, come over to our Facebook page. We're going to have a few photos based on the tales we have told you about today. And if you'd like to just say hi, or maybe you've got a story to tell me, maybe you've got an encounter, a question, email me at strangepathwaysmail@gmail.com. Head on over to YouTube, like, comment, subscribe, hit the little notification thing, and be sure to tell your family and friends about the show. Thank you so much again for joining us this week. Take care of yourselves and each other.